Early days, everything could change, but as of April 2022, I think we can declare the Swatch Omega tie-up and the Moonswatch to be a massive, raging, triumphant success. First question that comes is, what next? Let's have a talk about that. In trying to figure out what comes next, I think it's important to grasp what is it that Swatch is trying to achieve with these collaborations. There's two things. One is very obvious, one is less so. The more obvious one is obviously they're trying to sell more Swatch watches. They're trying to get more people into Swatch boutiques, and even if they're not buying a Moonswatch, they're picking up something else. Judging from the lines outside their stores right now, that would appear to be working. The more subtle and longer term view is that they're trying to plant a seed for a whole new generation of people to have the idea that something associated with Omega, something associated with the Speedmaster is in their long-term memory. So that not 6 months from now or a year from now or 2 years from now, but 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, when they're thinking about a watch, they'll remember that first Omega Moonswatch and be inclined towards an Omega. So with those two general aims in mind, what would the Swatch group want to do with any future collaborations? The first thing I'd say is the first rule would be, I think, that you really only want to do one of these collaborations with each brand, or at least you want to separate them out. You don't want to get the idea that this is an exclusive Swatch Omega thing. I think that would devalue, suck some of the power out of this. It would take away some of the surprise and potentially lead to some oversaturation. The next thing I'd say is that no brand is off limits. As soon as you turn around and say, oh, there are some brands that we can't do this to, you kind of devalue what you did with other brands, and you sort of start to cast a pall over that collaboration. You don't want to walk into this and say, well, this brand is okay for a collaboration, but this brand isn't. That said, there will be some brands, say Harry Winston, where I just don't think it makes any sense. Jacques Dro might be another one. It just doesn't make sense. I can't think of what that collab would look like. But apart from that, maybe you'd say, as I say, no brand is off limits. Okay, rule 3, guideline 3. Ideally, the watch that you're sort of riffing on, collaborating with, paying homage to, is going to be really well known amongst enthusiasts. It's going to generate a lot of buzz amongst the watch community, which in turn will filter out to the wider bunch of normies. And it will do that for a watch that could do with a bit of a push along. So you don't want to be out there sort of pushing a watch which you have no trouble selling. And at the same time, you don't want to be trying to push a watch which frankly no one knows about and you're not going to get any buzz at all. Rule 4, the watch that you're doing the collab with, like the Speedmaster, has to be instantly recognizable. It can't rely on great finishing or some sort of great movement to be popular. I mean, you're going to lose all of that when you make the Swatch collaboration. And this is really where I was saying things like Jacques Dro or Glassut Original don't really make sense because you're not going to be able to convey what they are in a Swatch collaboration. No, the watch that you choose to for the basis of the collaboration has to be something which, even when rendered in plastic, can be instantly identified as the Swatch version of something else. Rule 5, and this might sound like a bit of a paradox, but the brand you're collaborating with has to be a real heavy hitter. There has to be significant distance in the marketplace between Swatch, the seller of $99 to $200 plastic watches, and whichever brand you're collaborating with. Get enough distance there and it's fun, it's playful, it's enjoyable. Let those brands get too close together and it just feels a bit like you're giving me a slightly cheaper version of an already cheap watch, and you lose the sense of playfulness. So yeah, I think they've got to be brands clearly at the other end of the spectrum. And I think on the current way that the Swatch Group is sliced up, Omega is kind of the base of where you could do one of these collaborations. So with all of those rules in place, I see two obvious collaborations, but for the Swatch Group to do in maybe 2 years' time, and then perhaps in another 2 years after that. The first would be, obviously, in 2024, I'd be thinking about doing a tie-up between Swatch and Blancpain on the 50 Fathoms. I think that is so obvious. It's an iconic watch. It's instantly recognizable. It doesn't look like anything else. Doesn't rely on great finishing or anything. It can easily be carried across to the plastic you're going to get with Swatch. And at the same time, it's got enough gravitas, enough seriousness, enough kind of buzz within the watch community that when this was tipped and when this was leaked, we would get all excited. We'd get other people excited. And yeah, it's a pretty straightforward and obvious choice. Just as the Moonswatch tied up with the planets and planetary bodies, you could do something similar for the 50 Fathoms. Have the seven seas, or some other kind of tie-up which lets you do a red one, a black one, a blue one, all that sort of thing. 2 years after that, the next for me would be the Brege Type 20. Now, I'm not sure how you would theme that. We don't have skies in the same way as we do seas for the 50 Fathoms, or planetary bodies as we do for the Moonswatch. Maybe you could do it by era. So you could do a sepia one for back in fabric days, and then you could do a metallic one, then you could do a colorful one or a carbon fiber one, and do it instead of linking to planets or linking to seas, you then link it to aircraft materials and tie in the aircraft thing with a Brege Type 20. But either way, those would be the two follow-ups I'd be looking at. A Blancpain 50 Fathoms version collab with a Swatch, and a Brege Type 20 collab with a Swatch. So, assuming that the Moonswatch continues to be successful, as I certainly think it will, what do you guys reckon? What collaborations do you think would work? What rules would you put in place? Do you think mine are ridiculous and that should never be done? Love to hear from you in the comments below. I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches. I will see you later. Bye.